Hey everyone, this is Dennis from nerdjackblog.com. I recently, earlier today, sat down and was able to have a discussion over the phone with Kenneth Thrower, which is a name you may not be familiar with, but he is the current chief grader and co-founder of WATA Games, which you may be asking yourself, what is WATA Games? Well, stay tuned, you're about to find out. Here's my interview with Mr. Kenneth Thrower. What exactly is WATA Games?
I'm Rob, dude. You mean like the meaning behind the name, or?
Yeah. Well, what's the meaning and what kind of the idea of why you? My understanding is you're.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm the chief creator for the company.
Okay.
Yeah. So WATA Games is a concept that me and the president Dennis Kahn came up with. We're probably going on 3 to 4 years now.
Okay.
We've been open for a little over 2 years now, since, no, actually not even 2 years.
Okay.
April 1st, not just this past year, but the year before was our official opening. But yeah, we're probably, a year and a half to 2 years before that of planning and, setting everything up. But, we originally started out as, one upgrading.
Okay.
And that was our tentative name, and it was kind of a little bit too generic, and all the IP and everything was on. So WATA Games was something that we developed as a team, and kind of the inspiration behind the name was from a quote of Bruce Lee's,
Okay.
where basically he says, something along the lines of, it's from an interview that he did, and he says, to be like WATA, and it's a little bit of a play on his accent, but
Okay.
he says, water can crash, water can flow around things, it can, you put it in a cup and it becomes a cup, you put it in a pitcher, a bowl, it becomes, it takes shape, water's transparent. So it's kind of like the, kind of our mantra for how our business, we like to be, transparent in the industry, to form standards that everyone can, understand and agree upon, and, but also to hear and listen, from the community and,
Okay. Yeah.
change ourselves in that way.
Yeah. Just kind of be adaptable.
Exactly.
And how many people actually work at WATA Games? Is it just you and Dennis, or how many people have on?
Oh, no. We have a team of, altogether, it's about 10 people. So,
Okay.
yeah, some part-time, some full-time. So, and then we have people that, also are founders that, work remotely in different aspects of the business.
Gotcha. Okay.
So.
And had you or Dennis kind of started out in this industry or anything related, or how did you kind of get into this?
Yeah, we both got into this industry through, strictly through collecting video games. We both met up on a website, a forum called NintendoAge.com, which is
Okay.
recently, defunct. But
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, it was acquired by Go Collect, which is like a collection and pricing tracking tool for comics and other mediums, and they're launching a video game, arm of that.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, we were collectors. There was an annual camp out event that we would go to, so we met, in person. But we both had a very similar background in collecting. Dennis and his father came from a comic collecting background. I came from coin collecting background. And both of those mediums, have grading and certification services that have been around for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Coins since 1986, comics since 1999. So we're both familiar with, the benefits of grading and certification to collectibles, because it levels the playing field. It makes, it gets rid of fakes and doctoring, whether it be restoration, things like that. So it makes it to where the average enthusiast or collector or, fan can be involved in collecting without, some of the risk inherent with buying something on eBay or from internet pictures.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that had become a kind of a more common thing in gaming, that we were seeing a lot of old time collectors kind of being driven off from game collecting just because of the amount of fakes, amount of people getting scammed. So it's kind of leaving a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, as popularity and prices rose with video games.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then, now, exactly how would you say I know there's other competing services, I think. I'm always aware. Do you guys differ in any way or have a different mentality, or how do you feel about the other companies?
We definitely differ, and, we don't want to, we're not here to, talk bad about our competition.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. I'm not trying to get.
Oh, no. But yeah, like I said before, with us both coming from backgrounds in other collectibles that already had certification in place, I can say that both of us were both, customers and supporters of, like VGA was the first video game grading service on the scene in 2008, because we knew the benefits and how certification had, kind of protected and safeguarded the community in these other fields of collectibles. So we were both kind of cheerleaders, for him from the get-go. But, there's kind of some problems and issues inherent in their setup. They are a toy grading company, first and foremost. They started out grading like starting lineup figures in the 90s.
Okay.
And video games kind of made sense as a side collectible for them because they're basically, like a custom acrylic shop that grades cardboard and plastic. So, I mean, when you get down to the root of it, that's what a lot of toys and video games and different collectibles are.
Yeah.
So they branched into dolls and die-cast cars and, different mediums like that had similar makeup, as far as packaging and stuff like that to look for, whether it was open and what condition it was, So, they did have experience in looking at packaging, which I think is also why, they kind of stuck to sealed items.
Okay.
Because when you get into open games, it's a whole different world of what came in it and did this come in it and did it come in it this month and not 2 months later.
Yeah, you got different. Yeah, different.
The variants are all over the place. So, I would say, in being as gingerly as possible, that I don't think the expertise was ever developed within any of our competition.
Okay.
And I don't think that they necessarily were doing anything wrong. It's just that we were a little bit more diehard of collectors and experts in the field, and basically 20 years in, I kind of thought, look, this would be a great opportunity. This needs to be developed more. It needs to be open to more of the market, including cartridges, complete in box games, because while sealed may be the pinnacle of video game collecting, it probably accounts for less than 1% of collectors.
That's very true.
Just because of the pure numbers.
Yeah, I mean, just the sheer fact there's not too many sealed Super Mario Brothers from the launch day or the launch period.
Right.
Those floating out there. Although anytime those make the news, people start thinking Mario Brothers and that kind of little cartridges are worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah. We got an email like that yesterday with just a Mario cartridge, and the guy was telling us how he wanted to sell it and retire. There's definitely that interest there, but just from a pure numbers perspective, it really wasn't what we saw, at least in our online forums and community, was that VGA was a little bit polarizing to a lot of collectors because, like I said, it only accounted for a small percentage of video game collectors or enthusiasts, and it's understandable because grading something like complete box games for us was really a quantum leap in grading, because you're taking something that takes a few seconds, minutes to grade, and you're adding, an item that may have 15 pieces that all need to be independently assessed and imaged, and authenticated, graded, all the data collected. So, I'll just put it this way: if it was just for complete in box grading, I don't think we could be profitable.
Okay.
But we really wanted to make sure that, this community that we love, was all included, whether it's someone sending in their childhood copy of Zelda, beat to death and is maybe a 5 out of 10, the average collector or investor or whoever it might be might look at that and go, why would you ever get that graded? And we actually had that happen, and, the guy's like, this is my childhood copy. I played with my father, and, he's no longer with us. So, there's a reason to not to include everyone in the community.
The way to kind of encapsulate that, I guess people with those sorts of situations, I can see the nostalgia plays a factor, and then just kind of having something to display on your mantle. There's so many other ways to play, for example, that Zelda game now. It might be cool to have in a nice case displayed on your mantle.
Exactly, and that the nostalgia that you mentioned is, that's the driving factor behind every collectible. It's why my father's generation might pay $125,000 for a Mopar muscle car that cost $3,000 new, or, a Barbie doll that was, $2 is worth, $50,000. But, that's basically our mission statement, for us to elevate video games from a collectible that's based in nostalgia, to an appreciation of art and history. And that's true in basically every collectible that becomes, more than just a fad. It's not, troll dolls or Beanie Babies or, whatever it might be. Any collectible that has that, today take maybe comic books, for example. These books were maybe 10 cents to a quarter new, and now some of them are worth, millions of dollars. But, they've introduced characters that are still with us today. They've become socially significant. And so that's where something like the Mario Brothers, people think, well, why would this Mario Brothers be worth six figures or whatever it might be priced at? Super Mario is now the most recognizable character on Earth, fictional or non.
It's incredible. I mean, if you would have told me that was the case 10 years ago, I would have said it's crazy. But now, it's Halloween treating everything just kid. It's a Mario or a Bowser or something.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that became a thing, I think, around 2004. But, it's still just been building and building. And, I think there's been a ton of, I don't know if you'd call it potential, for this market that's, and this is something I said for years, like I said, coming from coins, which is like the king of collectibles. When you're collecting coins, you're dealing with like oil barons, people that own baseball teams or, actors or something like that. And it's like, you can't even really play in the same field as them. You can kind of like, you're in the sandbox on the lower end. But, in video games,
I'll go up my voice. I can afford that.
Right. But, I said this, several years ago on the forums, and video games, I was like, video games is still in its infancy, the significance of this stuff, a cultural significance. One of our founders, Mark Haskell, he co-founded CGC, which is the comic grading company.
Oh, okay.
So he's kind of our certifications expert, and, has given us a lot of info on the certification side of everything. For our business. But, one of the things that he mentioned is, when we got into this, he's remembering NES games from his childhood, like Rygar. And he's telling us, he's like, you have to think, when I was in school, middle school, high school, I read comic books, and, I probably had 10 or a dozen friends that read comic books. He's like, but everybody played video games, like literally everybody. So, you see how comics have matured with, maybe a relatively obscure audience to begin with. But video games, pretty much everyone that's 50-ish or younger has had experience with video games as part of their childhood growing up, as part of their nostalgia. So, and we're already seeing, Gen, Y and Z, like, collecting heavily things like Pokemon and Nintendo 64, and even modern disc-based systems that are, in my opinion, I'm 37, they're fairly new, but, they're paying the same money, for some of these items that maybe not be as rare or obscure, but, just simply that nostalgia-driven, market. Will make it to where, around Christmas time, all the game systems just are non-existent on eBay and in every, used game store you go to, because that's what people are asking for Christmas. And, and then they're spending money on a nice, clean or factory sealed copy of a game that's, nostalgic to them from their childhood. So.
Yeah, I recently, just personally, I own a big Genesis NBA Jam cartridge for a long time. And I recently, within the past year or so, acquired a copy of that. which I have no intentions of ever opening, but I just wanted that mint condition look. I get it.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, and it's something that, like you said, a lot of people don't understand, like, well, why do you need to have a sealed copy? There's the old adage of, like, games were meant to be played. You'll hear that for every, collectible comics were meant to be read and coins were meant to be spent, whatever it might be. But, a lot of it goes back to that nostalgia factor, and you have people that, like, I remember going to Toys R Us or Lionel Kitty City or whatever their, KB toy stores. And they remember these displays, and they remember the setup, and they remember being, however old they were, and just looking, it's like their eyes are just twinkling at this wall of amazing stuff, and it's
I remember going into Toys R Us with my brother, just the wall of the little flip charts, and when you're 4 foot tall, it looks like it goes up for miles.
Yeah, the vid pro card.
Ticket, and then you click it and take it to the counter, and they mysteriously out of the back room produce magical video games.
Yeah, well, even those, his vid pro cards are, most of those are like $25 and up. I mean, signage and display stuff, just because people remember these displays in the world of Nintendo cabinets or, different kiosks for different game systems. All this stuff has quite a bit of value attached to it now, just because, you see people's pictures of their games room, and that's what they're recreating, is like the store feel, the signage, the games on display, the cabinets.
Yeah.
So.
Now, now, if I were to send in a game, what just kind of walk me through what your process is and what you guys do when you get, let's say for example, a sealed copy with the cartridge.
Yeah. So if you're to send in a game, obviously you'd set up your account online. All of our process, since we're, a fairly new company, we wanted to go into things in the future. Pretty much every other certification company has like paper, transparencies and stuff like that. And we're like, no, everything's going to be online. There's not going to be any paper forms. So everything's done online, and we've tried to streamline it as much as possible, kind of like your Amazon type shopping experience, where it's just like point and click, here's my game, here's what system it's for, here's what state it's in, whether it's sealed, CIB, cart, a prototype. Here's what type of, label I would like on it, because we have like a 2D and a 3D label type. Do I want cleaning? Do I want post-grading pictures? Do I want board photos if it's like a prototype or, a rare cartridge? So, we offer all these services along with the game. Person checks out, packs their game up and ships it to us. We also do submissions at like trade shows that we attend, or where we accept submissions. But once the game reaches us, there's basically a sheet that the submitters have to print out and include in their package, and it's just a simple order form sheet with like a QR code. So when we get the package, it's opened under cameras. The QR code can be scanned by our receiver. And that basically links, the package to the order in our system. So, it kind of takes, a little bit of the manual process out of it, and also, any kind of errors that could happen with that. So basically when we're getting the order, it's like, okay, here's the order form sheet, here's what's supposed to be on it. And we can manually scan it in and go, okay, there's 8 games on this order, and there's 8 games in this box, and they match. Once the order's received, it'll go to imaging. Every game that we get, and it's not, a charged service, gets pre-grading photos. So it's basically just like a front and back shot.
Okay.
So if you have like a cartridge or a sealed game, it's just a front and back. If you have a complete box game, it's going to be all the pieces of the game laid out. So it'll be your box, your sleeve, your cartridge, your manual, your maps, your, rear projection TV warning, whatever might be in that game, is included. And it's the same. It's a front and back layout of the pieces included. And that's partially for the reason of, kind of goes back to the whole adage, the games are meant to be played, or, like I said, the comics are meant to be read. A lot of people are like, well, if you put a complete box game in a holder, in this UV protected acrylic archival holder, well, how do you know what's inside of it? Well, that's where our expertise comes in, that we catalog all the items that are inside of the game. Also, when the user would go to their dashboard online, you'll have those pictures associated with the item. So for sealed games, we grade the items. So after they go through imaging, they'll go to grading. The first step is, authentication. So we're basically looking at the item to make sure it is what it is. It's genuine. And there's a number of ways to do that, but a lot of it is just experience, right? Like it's, looking at, 10,000 plus games of the same system, for, 2 decades. So
now, on sealed games, do you notice like where people think maybe they've got a genuine item and then they realize you guys maybe discover, is there a way to discover if like shrink wrap has been a fact?
Daily. I've done that this morning already. I've had to email, and it's never a fun thing to do, but, I have to, a template basically for,
sure.
CIB games that are resealed, for new games that are resealed, which is a whole nother thing that you can have. Like you could basically have a game that was never opened, the box has never been opened. However, maybe at Toys R Us, the seal got snagged on, the shelving, started to fall off, And usually, so like in my youth, I worked for Toys R Us, I worked for Blockbuster, I worked for Best Buy. So I'm very familiar with this process because it happened all the time.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so they would take the game in the back and re-shrink wrap it. Now, whether or not the store opened the box and looked inside and checked it is kind of detrimental, to the quality and condition of the item because you could turn, a game that's literally never been opened into a complete and box game. So
right.
This morning,
which to a collector, that's a significant.
Right. Exactly. And this morning I graded a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Collector's Edition that was sent in as sealed, and I'm sure, that's the thing. I'm sure for the submitter, it was a sealed game, no big deal. They wanted it to get graded, and, unfortunately, it's a complete box copy that was resealed. Some are done intentionally and, nefariously, and some are just a store, shrink wrap an item before they resold it. So, and, a lot of these places treat it as, even GameStop, which is like the last pretty much surviving game store nationwide, they do this all the time. They open items and reseal them. And they don't think of it as anything negatively because, they're the seller. So they think, well,
as far as
we're controlling it. So
they're not worried about
exactly. Exactly. So, we, unfortunately sometimes, we have to send these emails of, hello, this, item was determined to be, not authentic. Luckily with things like a cardboard box, you open the box once and there's evidence that it's been opened, because of the dye lines on the lid and how the paint creases and creates a valley and, makes color breaks. A lot of times there's wear underneath the seal in the corners where the box has been, nicked or, a little bit of color rubbed off. And a lot of times that's not congruent with the seal itself. Most of the times, even the seal is just wrong because, the proper machinery to seal a game is, it's not a $200 sealer that sits on a counter, at most stores. It's a six-figure machine, So, there's different things to look at, but both the box and the seal have to be, taken into consideration. And for the most part, it's, it's, if you know what you're looking at, there's just signs of what to look for. There's other things that we see, like altered labels and, color touching, like on a black box where black ink or marker will be used to, kind of enhance the appearance. So there's all kind of different variety of things. But again, the easiest way to explain it, and, I'm sure this is true for anyone that, is really advanced in a certain collectible. It's just after so much experience, I bought and sold and cleaned and, thousands and thousands and thousands of video games over the years before I even worked here and, had to grade thousands more. So,
I would think
you get used to what
notice
stuff,
those outliers.
Yeah, you notice what stuff looks like. You notice when stuff isn't right. Just feeling shrink wrap, it being the right weight, glossiness. There's all kind of, even the cellophane versus shrink wrap, which people use interchangeably, but they're two different things, One's crinkly and one's stretchy. So there's all these little things to look for, that, like I said, just become kind of second nature when you're, evaluating something. But for something like a complete in box game, like I said, all the pieces get, graded. So we have what we call GSIs, game specific inserts. So for a game like The Legend of Zelda has a map, or, If there's a certain poster that's associated only with this game, certain map, a certain insert, whatever it might be, we grade those items independently.
Okay.
They don't go to the overall grade of the item. So like a complete in box game has 3 components, box manual and cartridge that make up the overall grade for the item that we assess. But we do both grade and note on the label the GSIs. So say you send in a copy of The Legend of Zelda on NES, and it has the box, cart, manual, and the sleeve, and the plastic baggie, and the Zelda map. The 3 main items, the box, cart, manual, will all get graded individually and have an overall grade that'll be on the front of the label, as well as the breakdown on the back. But you'll also see GSI, Maps and Strategies, which is the name of the Zelda map, and it'll be assessed separately. But it won't affect the overall grade. So the other stuff like the baggie and the dust sleeve won't be printed on the label, but we do include those on our matrix, which is the code on the back of our label that looks like a QR code.
Okay.
But it's actually 500 times denser than a QR code, and it stores the information on it statically, so it doesn't require internet like a QR code does. The information is actually drawn on there. It looks like a bunch of square tree branches, but with a Matrix app that'll be released shortly, users will be able to scan it with the Matrix app, and it'll give you basically a snapshot of everything that's on the label, plus those items that aren't available, due to space reasons on the label. So every little piece of information, the day it was graded, the population at the time of grading, the pictures, everything would be included with that. And even in some cases, things like prototypes, the ROM image that we dumped from a prototype game would be, included and linked to that as well.
Okay, cool. It may be hard for you to come up with that, but how much did you guess you guys grade per day, or is it pretty steady, or do you have a steady flow of games all the time, or?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows, but it's, maybe it's 200 to 300 a day might be kind of an average, I would guess. There's some, obviously there's outliers.
Yeah, do you notice like seasonal trends at all, or it's steady? I mean, you can see people maybe around holidays, maybe when you get stuff for GS.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I guess this will be our first, full year. Because, our first, several months we were new, we were starting up, we had steady business, but it's definitely picked up, tenfold or more.
Okay.
It's not more than that even. I'm probably underestimating it, but, with our involvement, like heritage auctions and a few different, auction houses have started, exclusively selling video games, that are graded by WATA. And a lot of that is because, the things that we developed with our grading process that's different from the other grading companies, the security of the case that can't be tampered with, the information on the label, the security factors on the label and, the case together. Like I said, our matrix code that's on the game is not replicatable. It was, I can't exactly explain where it came from anymore legally, but it was made by a major government, entity. So our flow that our grades printed on, the little blue hologram, is a holographic currency thread, which is what the European bank used in their currency. It's nicer than what's in the U.S. currency as far as security. So yeah, our case is more secure than our money. So. Yeah, I mean, we have, these things that, and that along with, the community support of our expertise has, made us kind of an exclusive,
that makes sense.
With these auction houses.
Yeah,
because we're standing behind the product, and, these auction houses put their reputation on the line, so they want to make sure whatever they're selling is, legit. So if they trust the certification company behind it, then they'll sell the auctions.
That makes sense. Because you guys are newer, so I understand the trends may be hard to pick up on just as you're growing. And the first step, obviously, was just to gain credibility of the business.
Yeah. So, with some of that stuff, whatever I was getting at was our business has really picked up more than we even expected. Getting back to what I said earlier, with our expertise in the field and kind of the stagnation of video game grading not really growing or becoming more dynamic over, it was out 11 years before we opened our doors. That's where we kind of stepped in and said, we could do the service better because the community is kind of suffering for it right now. And, a lot of old-time collectors are being driven away by high prices coupled with a lot of, fraud, a lot of fakes, a lot of tampered, altered, doctored items. That was our interest. And from what we learned from that, what I said before about, video games being in its infancy, this was true. What it was, there was barriers to entry for a lot of collectors that weren't necessarily die-hard video game collectors. Maybe they were comic collectors, maybe they were coin collectors, maybe they were baseball card or Pokemon card collectors, Magic the Gathering collectors. So we've seen a lot of collectors from these other fields that were passionate about video games, but they weren't experts. And, they had reservations about buying, these, what people call grail items or expensive items, just because, it's like, okay, I grew up loving Michael Jordan, right? But I'm not a card expert. So, do I want to spend $10,000 to $25,000 on a rookie Jordan? Maybe, but like, do I feel comfortable buying one that's raw? Of course not, So that's true for me. So I would want to buy that card graded through, a third party grading company that's reputable, so that I feel safe in my purchase. I don't want to pay, $15,000 when it's worth 25 and be like, wow, I got a great deal, and then send it in to get graded and they go, hey, you know what, this is not real. So yeah, that's basically what we saw was this kind of mad rush of business, and the flow was based on, there was barriers to entry, and a lot of it was based on the things that we saw from our own, group of collectors was, the fakes, the altered items, the bait and switch, put this picture on eBay and sell this. And, eBay is a huge marketplace, but unfortunately, things like Heritage, when they announced they were selling video games, a lot of people would say, well, over 1 million registered users, big deal. eBay has, 100 times that. But what it boils down to is, eBay's registered users are world-class collectors, that have, maybe deeper pocketbooks, and, there's no, con artist in there. So, you don't get to play in that playing field unless, you're a clean dealer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
yeah.
So it was quality versus quantity. And
the barrier to entry on eBay is much lower. Any 18-year-old can open up their own eBay.
Right. Anyone can scam someone, over the weekend too.
Yeah.
So, and you're not going to get that on auction sites, like Heritage or Comic Link or Comic Connect, whatever these, more respected collectible auction sites are that are selling, games that are graded by WATA. So yeah, all of a sudden we started seeing people that had world-class collections from multiple different, genres. All of a sudden they're going, hey, The Legend of Zelda Sealed, that was a landmark game, and it's only $3,000, and someone like me might look at that and go, wow, yesterday that was $300.
Yeah.
But, it's, they're used to, like I said, these other collectibles, cards and comics that, go for multitudes of that. So to them, spending a couple grand is like, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I think the difference there, in pricing is lots of, you're dealing with something that, they're all mass produced, but things like paper, like comic books, they don't, you can't leave those in a box. It hold their condition as a video game is much more resilient to stand up to certain conditions and less likely to be thrown out. There's just various reasons. Comic books are considered disposable, as people usually hold on.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised. A lot of video games you find out, like, we'll go to a show and set up and, you'll see, this mid-40s, guy with his kids, and he's like, oh, I had all of these. I remember this, and he's, he's telling the truth because he's describing the stuff in detail.
Yeah.
And he's like, my mom threw it all away, You hear that over and over and over again. So even video games, it's like, there was like, where are all these G.I. Joe and Transformer and Star Wars toys? I guess they're in the same landfill as the games and comics. But
that's true.
The games tend to be kept maybe a little bit more, but it was, the thing is like the older games, it's like people kept the cartridge and they threw everything else away. So you have boxes that are worth 5 times what the game's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Um,
there's a lot of people in those 40s. I wish I didn't trade those 15 games in so I could upgrade and buy the company.
exactly.
There's a lot of things
So,
that I really wish I had that.
yeah, exactly. And we hear that over and over too. So, and that's what a lot of it, what drives it too is people did get rid of their stuff and they did
Yeah.
move on, and now they're, at a place in their life where they have maybe some disposable income, and the collector thing is, it's inherent in a lot of people. And it's like, what do I want? What made me happy?
Yeah.
What do I have fond memories of? And so, what is it going to be? Is it going to be Hungry Hungry Hippos, or is it going to be, Mega Man?
It's true.
So, there's, and maybe it's both, but,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, like I said, kind of like the parallel that Mark drew with the comics versus video games, for a lot of people, it's, video games was just ubiquitous with growing up for the last 40 plus years.
True.
And, so of course it's going to make a mark on people. It's like if comic books, that were, unfortunately categorized as like nerdy and, read by this fringe audience, have so much popularity now, and they drive movies and they drive theme parks and, everything you can think of, toys. The same can be said, if not, more strongly for video games.
Yeah, I think we're just starting to finally come around to see. I mean, 'cause the people that are making it up, so it's going to be interesting decade.
Yeah. Well, and that's something, it's not, it's not like our goal to, overinflate the prices of a hobby, but whenever you certify a collectible, when it's significant and starts to get into, values that are necessary for certification, for, an authentication and grading process to exist, that hobby definitely become legitimate.
Yeah.
So,
Do you guys have any way that you're combating? Do you feel like you have to kind of defend people that come at you and say there's lots of speculation and that's what's driving it currently? Are you afraid of a bubble?
yeah, I mean, honestly, well, that's the funny thing, and I wish the Nintendo Age servers were still up for people to view, because there's been talk of the bubble bursting, for the last 15 plus years in video games, and like I don't think across the board you could probably find a game that you could have purchased even 5 years ago that wouldn't be like a landslide victory, even if you paid top of the market for it. So it's, it's
kind of when you guys started, there was a need in the market, so it wasn't like created this artificial.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the flip side to the argument is, people will say, you're inflating prices, or you're creating artificial value based on a holder, and, a fair and, maybe hard to argue with, retort is, well, what's to say that, these things didn't already have a ton of cultural significance and value, but they weren't realized because you weren't able to, accurately be sure if, it's legitimate or not. So it goes back to, like I said, with the raw Jordan card, right? Like, it's probably worth less than half of its market value if it's real and if it's this condition. But as long as it sits there raw, there's no dealer, collector, anyone on earth that's going to probably pay half of the value of, say, a PSA, 9.4 or, whatever it is. So, and that's not because, the card is not worth what it's worth because of the holder. It's just because these things can be altered. They can be faked. They can be,
that makes perfect sense.
For someone to, invest their money in it, generally, even if it is the expert assesses it and buys it for a deal, they're still going to get it authenticated because, like me, I'm the chief grader. So maybe I'm like, I'm the authority in this field, but like, I guarantee you, like, and this is hypothetical because we're not allowed to, grade or sell our own items, obviously, for, since we're, third party grader. But, if I was hypothetically to sell you something, it doesn't matter that I'm, the authority on, saying this is what it is. People are still going to pay more if it's authenticated and graded, and they don't have to reprove that later. You know what I mean? So it makes the item in a way more liquid, I guess, as far as a collectible, whether it be for insurance, whether it be for I'm going to sell it because my wife is sick and I need money right now. Whatever it is, like with collectibles, that is a legitimate concern. Is how authenticated is this, and how easy is it to match it to what it is? And unfortunately, I guess for some people that are purists or want the stuff raw, putting it in an acrylic tamper-proof holder with basically a certification around it saying it's this and it's that and it's exactly this, and that's the way, that people do that. So
true. Yeah. Well,
take the most beautiful diamond in the world and they etch it with a laser,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's attaching, that provenance to it, that makes it, as long as it's in that certified holder, tied to, this is what this is and this has been conditioned this and, it was authenticated and certified by experts in this field. So,
yeah. Well, where Kenneth, I appreciate your time. Where can people stay up to date or learn more about WATA Games? What is you want to give out your web address, or you guys have a store for the year?
Yeah, watagames.com, is our website. If users want to go to our, we have a blog that you can subscribe to. So we'll be publishing articles. One of our popular articles we published was a black box, like a definitive black box variant guide. So the Nintendo black boxes, those are the first releases for the NES. Some of them have 10 to 15 different variants because it was Nintendo's first foray into consoles. It was their first game system, their first game. So they were changing stuff on the box, cartridges and manuals every few months.
Okay.
So, from October of 85 to, mid 1987, you have 6 different variants, because they realized that these sticker seals didn't work and the hang tabs on the boxes tore off. Let's make them more secure. Let's put them in shrink wrap. We should probably add the product codes to the games. We should probably trademark Nintendo and Nintendo Entertainment System and then register it and then change the seal to where it's more readable. All these different things that they did.
Yeah.
So, users can check out our blog. Do you know the blog? Yeah, you can go to WATA Games. There's a book tab. There's a blog tab under.
Okay.
Yeah, and then newsletter tab.
Newsletter. Okay.
But yeah, that'll be updated with more and more articles over time. So, but yeah, we're trying to be informative to collectors, enthusiasts, anyone that's interested, because that's the type of stuff that article alone really pumped up our submissions and stuff. And that was not really the plan. It was just kind of this stuff that I've been working on for 20 years, and it's taken me forever to just figure out what goes where and when it came out, and you start to see enough and lay them out, it becomes clear.
And people are thirsty for that sort of knowledge, and it's good that you guys put it out there and add that kind of as a public service to people just to stay in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is, we are collectors first. This is, we look at this as serious business because it's our hobby that we came from. We're not a company that's just out trying to, capitalize on being a business. It's, the fact that, there was, some competitive services out there, but they were missing a lot of details. They were missing a lot of the importance with the variants, things like that. And, we wanted to give collectors, which is who we are, and, the group that we're a part of, this great community, that we've been a part of for years. We wanted to give back to that because it's it's great that I've spent 2 decades of my life wasting it on learning all the little intricacies of video games. But what does it benefit anyone else, if all that information is just stuck in my head, right? So, let's share it with everyone. If people want to be involved in grading and certification, great. Like I said, there's different reasons, whether it be, this is my childhood copy, I want to be the king of the mountain and compete because, that's human nature, and put together the best set. Or, look, these are some of my favorites and I want to have 5 favorites on my shelf,
Yeah.
So, there's a different reason for everyone, but we wanted to include everyone and support, that endeavor and make it a clear, level playing field, that wasn't hidden behind, well, who are these people? What makes them the authority? What,
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Okay, well, I definitely appreciate you coming up. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I think you guys are doing great work. Keep it up, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah,